Welcome to another edition of the Voice of Palestine, Voice of the Palestinian people. It's January 26, 2014, and I'm your co-host, Hanna Qawas. This week we are talking with Bruce Katz from Montreal, president of PAJU, Palestinian and Jewish Unity, about their recent statement entitled The Indecency of Harper Government Support for Israel. We will talk with Bruce about PAJU's position as well as review Harper's visit this past week to the region. Good evening to you, Bruce, and welcome again to the Voice of Palestine.
Thank you.
You know, there were lots of media attention and lots of fanfare, you know. I mean, not to say that it wasn't worth it, because he took 200 people, more than 200 people, alongside him to Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. What do you think of the objective? Because this is the first time he goes to Israel, I believe, since he became Prime Minister.
Well, I think in terms of the objective, I think it's mostly for domestic consumption, because let's face it, he and his government carry absolutely no weight in international politics, and as a matter of fact, there was an article in an Israeli newspaper, which was entitled the newspaper's Haaretz, and it was entitled Prime Minister Harper may be a friend of Netanyahu, but he's not a friend of Israel. And in that article, they said that if he was going to come there, he should have come and given a dose of reality to Netanyahu and denounced his settlement project, etc. But in the article, the author wrote, and I thought it was very well stated, that Prime Minister Harper's influence is in inverse proportion to the size of Canada as geographically. In other words, it's the mouse that roared. He has no influence whatsoever. So, given that, we have to understand that basically this is a trip to solidify his standing with the right-wing financiers in the Jewish community. I'm thinking especially of those who are involved in the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, people like Heather Reisman, her husband Jerry Schwartz, and other prominent people with a lot of money who've sunk their money into the Conservative Party. So that's part of it. The other part of it is really an ideological proximity to Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And I think he was there somehow in this convoluted way of thinking that somehow his presence was going to bolster Netanyahu's standing. Netanyahu is viewed as an international pariah, and Israel is now viewed clearly as an international pariah. The BDS movement has increased considerably since Netanyahu took power. So part of his presence there is strategic, as I said, for domestic consumption. But I think we also need to look at the fact that it's also narrowly ideological, and PAJU mentioned this in its press statement. Most people don't know that back in the late 1970s, Stephen Harper was involved in an organization which is called the Northern Foundation. The Northern Foundation had also ties to the burgeoning Western Reform Party at that point. But what's significant about the Northern Foundation is that it had ties to individuals and other organizations that were ardently and aggressively pro-South African apartheid. And the thinking was that they were defending basically a type of Anglo-Saxon nativism that was, some nostalgia for British imperialism and the so-called civilizing effect of British colonization on so-called inferior peoples. And this is what drives this man philosophically and ideologically.
Yeah.
And so when you consider the fact that Harper himself was a proponent, a strong supporter of the South African apartheid regime, based on this idea of a European stock colonial settler society that is there to bring civilization to the natives, and you understand that in the case of Palestine, of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, he carries those same values to that conflict, and he sees and has said as much, and Jason Kenney said as much, pretty much in an interview with Post Media just recently. As a matter of fact, it was on Friday, January the 17th. So what Harper believes, what a Jason Kenney believes, what a John Baird believes is that Israel as a European settler society is there to civilize the inferior Palestinians and now Bedouin as well, because they're ethnically cleansing the Bedouin in the Negev. So what we have here really, when you start to scratch away at the surface and you dig deeper, what you have is, in the presence of a Stephen Harper, of a Jason Kenney, you have the reworking of the old colonial concept of the white man's burden. There, Israel is here, as Great Britain was there to colonize and civilize the natives, these being the Palestinians in this case. So what I'm saying in so many words is that we have a racist who's sitting in power in 24 Sussex Drive. And that appears quite clear to me. So we understand that the type of unconditional support he's given and gave to the Netanyahu regime to basically the green light for continuing ethnic cleansing and building of settlements is not simply strategic, it's ideological. And it comes, as far as I'm concerned, from what I would call, and have just mentioned, as Anglo-Saxon nativism, such as it was portrayed in British colonialism.
Which is based.
This is what he represents.
Which is based on supremacist ideology.
Exactly. Exactly. This is why, when you look back at the Northern Foundation, I would invite your listeners to go onto the internet, look up Northern Foundation, Stephen Harper, and they're going to get quite an eye-opening list of facts and names. Because this organization had ties to people who could be considered white supremacists. And this is what we have. This is what we have running the government of Canada and running its foreign policy. So none of us should be surprised at the fact that Canada is absolutely isolated in international politics, as is Israel. So basically, as I said in an interview that I gave on Thursday, if you look at Harper and Netanyahu, look at them both in terms of the conceptualization of their politics. They're cut from the same cloth.
And also, the people of South Africa know about that. And what really was funny and ridiculous, that some people questioned why the South African didn't allow Harper to speak in the funeral of Nelson Mandela. I mean, they think people has short memory, or they don't know what.
Or they think they're as uninformed as our mainstream media.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So again, but he was, at least he went to the funeral, not like Netanyahu, who was true to his principle, and he didn't go because of Mandela's position on Palestine.
Oh, for sure. Not only the fact that, I mean, it's everyone knows, and especially the South Africans know the extent to which Israel aided the both logistically, militarily, the apartheid regime in South Africa,
including nuclear technology.
Exactly.
Testing the weapon.
It was the last country in the world to recognize the African National Congress government when they finally took power.
When there is a boycott against South Africa, they didn't abide by it, which is well known to the South African. Let's get back to his speech to the Knesset. It was really outrageous, to the point like he was a mouthpiece for Netanyahu and his...
Yeah, well, Netanyahu could have written the speech for him. Maybe he did.
Maybe. You never know. Yeah, that's true. But he touched on many things, and I'd like to talk with you about them. Basically saying, it's okay to criticize Israel, but to a point. Otherwise, it becomes anti-Semitism. What do you think of such nonsense?
Well, we said in our statement. First of all, we said. This is not someone who can differentiate between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. They're not the same thing. Zionism is not Judaism.
Yeah.
Judaism is a faith. It's an expression of religious philosophy, cultural traditions that basically are based on principles of humanism, as is Christianity, as is Islam.
That's true.
Zionism is a political movement, an ultra-nationalist movement, which is essentially based on the idea of an exclusive nation state for Jews only. That is not Judaism, and to criticize that is ridiculous. To say that to criticize a state and to criticize a political movement that has nothing to do with Judaism is somehow anti-Semitism. But this is the type of rhetoric that we've come to expect from Zionist circles. This is all. You see, what happens is that, and I've had this in instances where I've been part of a public debate, when the Zionists are not able to debate on fact and on detail, and they're losing the debate, what they do is then say, "Well, you're anti-Semitic." You see, that's kind of the last shoe, the shoe that they drop at the end when they're losing the debate.
Yeah, but
what's happening today is that they've cried wolf on that once, many times too often. Nobody listens to it anymore, and nobody. People see it for what it is: the instrumentalization of anti-Semitism to silence criticism of Israel. But in terms of Harper claiming that, which is basically what's been claimed before by Jason Kenney, by Erwin Kotler, who worked together closely with Jason Kenney when they were setting up this the committee to
anti-Semitism.
Exactly. They went, as a matter of fact, Kenney and Kotler went to Israel and basically got together with Avigdor Lieberman, another great humanist, to conceptualize all of this. Well, I consider it both intellectually dishonest and morally indefensible.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think that is part of what made people who here in Canada would normally be identified with as being strong supporters of Israel, of even being Zionists themselves, suddenly felt very uncomfortable with the fact that with the overkill, because what it tends to do is to highlight the degree to which politicians in this country and elsewhere are manipulated by Tel Aviv and their extensions in the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs here, AIPAC in the United States. And so they would prefer they would have preferred that Harper be much more subtle, like a Thomas Mulcair or a Justin Trudeau, or these types of politicians who basically represent pretty much the same thing, but they're not out there. The Harper's out there, and that embarrasses them. You know, that's basically what their critique was all about.
Yeah, but also I think it's, to me, it's more dangerous than that, because it's built on the premise that all Jews support Zionism.
Exactly.
And this premise is really promotes anti-Semitism, because they're saying every war crime, every ethnic cleansing, every apartheid system Israel creates is on the shoulder of all Jews, which really creates anti-Semitism. Don't you think?
I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, I said that some years ago in an interview in French on television, and the interviewer looked at me as if I were crazy. What I tried to explain to him was that if people consider that Israel is synonymous with world Jewry, that Israel is the expression of Judaism, if Israel is guilty of war crimes, then what happens is that the Jews end up having to bear a collective blame for the crimes of a small political elite in Israel that claims to speak for all the Jews of the world. And as you said, I consider that dangerous for the security of Jews in the world, as Israel now is viewed as an international pariah. When people in the Jewish community see somebody like Harper going out there throwing out the term of anti-Semitism with a whim, when it's not even based on any real analysis, it worries them as well, because it's not just the Zionists who are embarrassed, but other people in the Jewish community see this as being something potentially dangerous for their own security, because many Jews like myself do not want to be tied in any way, shape, or form to decisions made by fanatics like Netanyahu and company. We object to Israel committing its crimes against the Palestinians in the name of all Jews. They have no right to do that. They have no mandate to do that.
That's true.
They have no business talking as if they were talking for all the Jews of the world. And I would say the same to people like Heather Reisman and Jerry Schwartz in the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. These people have no right to be talking as if the Jews in this country form a monolithic group with a few talking heads who've managed to impose a corporate form, which is all they know because they come from corporations, a corporate form on the Jewish community, whereby these people have basically effaced democratically based organization in the Jewish community, like the Canadian Jewish Congress, which is no longer the Canadian Jewish Congress. It was taken over by the CIJA, and now it's run like a branch plant. So I criticize that, and if you notice, these people there was not a peep out of them about Harper's visit to Israel, because they know basically that they are part of that machine. And that machine has now been discredited. So in a way, I look at Harper's visit. We were talking about this before he went there, and a good friend of mine said, we should be very happy because he's our objective ally. Mm-hmm. He's going to discredit he's going to discredit their political discourse all by himself, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So from that respect, I'm happy. I also think that this was his swan song.
Yeah.
And that definitely after this, he's on the way out, and I even expect some of the daggers within the Conservative Party, because he has an opposition within it, to start coming out of their their sheaths, because he's proven that he has no business occupying the highest political office of the country.
We have Arabic proverb that says, when the cow falls, that's what happens. They come out of their shields.
The cow is now just balancing on three legs, and he's about to lose the second one. So I would say, at least this is the way I look at it, is that at some point in 2014, either he will leave or he will be pushed out to great cries of good riddance.
Yeah, he didn't pass opportunity either when in his speech to denounce, people who criticize apartheid, mainly the students, referring to Israeli Apartheid Week, and all of us, because we participate in this week in one way or another. This get a clear response from some of the MKs, the Arab MKs, the Palestinian MKs in the Israeli Knesset, who walked out on him, and I thought this was really a manifestation. He should have understood that, if he really, what he's saying is true, these people won't, walk out on him and denounce him and boo him, because, they're telling him, we're living under apartheid. There is over 50 laws that discriminate between Christian and Muslim Palestinians, and these people are Israeli, has Israeli citizenship, and they are 20% of Israeli population.
In terms of Israeli citizenship, let me just say this: there's no such thing as Israeli citizenship.
That's true.
Most people don't know that, but there were 21 residents of Israel, mostly of Jewish faith, who went through the court system in Israel, seeking exactly to be recognized as having Israeli citizenship, because they said unless we are recognized as Israelis, and unless Israeli nationality is the identity by which all residents in Israel are recognized equally before the law, then we can't have democracy. Now, that went all the way to the Supreme Court of Israel, and the Supreme Court of Israel ruled that there cannot be Israeli nationality, because to recognize Israeli nationality would be to undermine the Jewish character of the state. Therefore, by virtue of the ruling of the Supreme Court of Israel, there's no such thing as an Israeli national. One is either a Jew or a non-Jew. And that means what you're dealing with here is officially a racist state.
Sure, and it's supported by the highest court in the land, which is the Supreme Court.
Well, that's it. I mean,
I call it Israeli justice.
But that's it. I mean, so when I hear people say Israeli nationality, I'm sorry, but the Supreme Court of Israel has ruled that it doesn't exist. And so basically, the stamp on the passport that says Israeli is simply a form. It's there to permit people from Israel to travel abroad. Because if you travel abroad and you show a passport, and on the passport, instead of saying Israeli, it says Jewish, you will not be allowed to enter.
No, but I meant Israeli citizens, like they have the passport, and 20 of them 20% of them are
exactly.
non-Jews, and there is 50 laws that discriminate against them, and 29 laws are pending in this Knesset, which is really, when he talks about apartheid and these people walk out on him, he should get the signal, but it doesn't seem he's perceptive, or he has the...
Well, I don't think it's a question of perception. As I said, I think it's a question of ideology. And it's an ideology that's based on support for the idea of white colonial entities that colonize inferior peoples. And to me, it's clear. It's also clear in statements. We get statements from Jason Kenney, basically saying exactly the same thing. The degree to which Harper is complicit in supporting apartheid and the settlement projects was never clearer to me than it was at a summit that took place in 2011, where Harper actually opposed and prevented a move by President Barack Obama to have a G8 leaders declare that Israeli-Palestinian negotiations must be based on the pre-67 borders, on land borders that existed before Israel extended its control of the region after the 67 war. So in other words, he basically acted on behalf of Netanyahu at that summit.
Although this is against Canadian foreign policy, which states that all the area is occupied territory. Still on the book it says what it says. But again, I don't know if you're aware, I am without a Canadian passport for the last 18 years. Just after the Oslo Accord, they refused to put on my passport Bethlehem, Palestine, so I refused to take it. So it's clearly they don't recognize the occupation of the West Bank, as they consider it legitimate, that Israel is doing it because it's in the Torah, or in the Bible, which is ridiculous. Also, this is what motivated I'm not sure if you're aware, one of the resolutions that Canada voted against at the UN, which there was 18 resolutions Canada voted against. One of them says the right of refugees, Palestinian refugees who were displaced after 67. Forget about the ones before 67. Canada voted against that these refugees, I'm one of them, by the way, I don't have a right to go to Palestine, according to Bethlehem, my hometown, where, according to Harper, I shouldn't be allowed. That's why Canada voted against, which shows really that they say something and they practice something else. Again, this is why the Jewish National Fund, that has tax-deductible status, supports settlement. I mean, and the free trade agreement, all that. I think it's really goes, and again, like you said, Bruce, it goes way back to the ideological beliefs of Harper and his Christian Zionist. I think this is his base, and I think he doesn't care much about the Jewish Zionists regarding voting, numbers of vote. I think he bases his actions because he wants to win the Zionist Christians in this country. What do you think?
Well, I think that's absolutely the case, and you're absolutely right when you point to the fact that he himself is a evangelical Christian Zionist, and it has been noted that he has a literal interpretation of the second coming of Christ, which will be during Armageddon. And of course, what many people don't realize, and what many Jews don't realize, is that this idea of the parousia, or the second coming, is predicated on the idea that during Armageddon, most of the Jews will be killed, and the remaining Jews will be converted. but Christian Zionists don't talk about they don't talk about that aspect of their belief in the idea of Armageddon and
all they care about is their support and their money, basically, not how anti-Semites they are, really, because that's
basically that is. Yeah, basically that's what it's about. It's a support of Israel is it's strategic. I've said this before that essentially it's driven more by Islamophobia. Yeah. And in the battle against Islam, which is what a distorted version and notion of Islam, I might add. Support of Israel is strategic, but the scope is a war with Islam that they believe is coming. Okay, and that is also part of what stokes their demonization of Iran. Yeah. People are really not aware of the ideological conceptualization and leanings of people like Harper and Kenny and John Baird, but it's there. I don't know if you noticed that on the heels of this really a grand failure, which was his visit to Israel, and basically criticism from every corner and every media in the country, it was a disaster. But what has he done now? Is on the way back, he's announced he's going to hold an emergency debate on the Ukraine. Why? Yeah. It's because the idea. There are two ideas there. One is to try to deflect the fact that when he comes back, he's going to take a pounding. Yeah. So he hopes to try to use this as if anything Canada has to say and this government has to say.
Not just that.
Scores any points anywhere. Yeah. The second thing is that in Western Canada, there is a lot of the population has roots in the Ukraine. My own family background, my grandparents, is the Ukraine. So he wants to play on these things. I don't think he's going to succeed.
No, he's not, because also it's hypocritic, because when I'm sure you're aware of it, when Israel was trying to pass the law to evacuate the Bedouins from the Negev, a spokesperson for Baird, for our foreign minister, said this is internal matter. How come Ukraine is not internal? How come Ukraine is not internal matter?
No, well, that's it.
It's hypocrisy, isn't it?
The contradictions are glaring, but in other words, ethnic cleansing is an internal matter when it suits when it suits Harper and Baird. I might also add in terms of the eviction, the ethnic cleansing of the Bedouin in the Negev, that migratory bird sanctuary that was named in honor of Harper, that land was taken from Bedouin.
That's true.
So in other words, that sanctuary that bears Harper's name is land expropriated by way of ethnic cleansing, and once again, it's how ironic is that Harper, whose government was the very first government to cut off aid and diplomatic ties with the Palestinian Authority when Hamas won a victory in the Palestinian parliamentary elections in 2006. The man the man that said after Israel's war crimes against Gaza that Israel has a right to defend itself.
Yeah.
This man is there to talk about his dislike for totalitarian governments, his championing of human rights and democracy. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's pathetic, really. It really is pathetic. It's enough to turn one's stomach.
Yeah, he doesn't understand what human rights is, and will.
Not only I think he understands what it is. I think that he's against it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I think if you look at you look at where his policies are always in favor of, for example, in Honduras, a government that came to power and a coup d'état. In Colombia, where you have a government that has a record of killing the most trade unionists in the world.
Yeah. In the Arab world.
Yeah, support for
Saudi Arabia, you name it, Kuwait, and the Bahrainis.
Exactly.
They are our friends, he says.
Yeah, they're our friends, and they're the ones that are. They are the ones that are supporting and training Al Qaeda. Right throughout the region, and that's with logistic support from Israel.
Yeah, it does.
Which makes no sense, but that's a fact.
Yeah, they consider the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So
except when there's blowback.
There is always blowback.
And it hits them in the face, which eventually it will.
Yeah, it will, yeah. Okay, so, Bruce, could you tell us, I think the statement is really excellent, the indecency of the Harper governments for support. You issued it after his visit to the region. Could you tell us how people can get it? I believe it on your website. Could you give us your website?
It's www.PAJUMontreal.org.
PAJU Montreal, one word.
Yeah, one word. www.PAJUMontreal.org.
And PAJU stands for Palestinian
and Jewish Unity.
And Jewish Unity. So
right.
PAJU. Okay, so people could learn more about your activities also. The website has French and English, I believe.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so people.
And if I might just once again. Remind your listeners to go onto the internet, look up Northern Foundation and Stephen Harper, and they'll see an eyeful.
Yeah. Okay, my last question, do we have hope in this political system? Because, the other parties, including even the Green Party, they didn't take a good position so far on issues relating to Palestinian freedom or Palestinian human rights. So,
well, in the case of the NDP, that's not surprising. I think it's never been surprising. I was a candidate for the New Democratic Party in 1988 in the free trade elections, and my very close friend and Palestinian brother, Rezek Faraj, was also a
candidate.
Won the nomination for the NDP in the Saint-Jean riding, and there was always a pro-Zionist establishment that was there to oversee and to block. So and as a matter of fact, Lorne Nystrom, who was the main organizer for Malkir's leadership campaign. He was among them, and he's still there. Malkir himself, we know, is strongly pro-Zionist.
Yeah.
But these days he's trying to hide it more. But I don't know if you looked at if you've seen the statement that was made by Paul Duer.
Yeah.
It was on the NDP website, where basically he lamented for the loss of Ariel Sharon as if this man was a great man. He was a terrorist and a butcher.
Yeah.
But apparently not in the eyes of the NDP.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no surprise in the fact that the NDP's position for the most part is indistinguishable. Mm-hmm. Really.
Yeah.
In the essential things it represents, considering the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it's pretty much indistinguishable from the conservative position, except that, unlike Harper, he's not out there. So they're more subtle about it. It's like the Liberal Party. Yeah. There's no difference between a Thomas Mulcair, a Justin Trudeau, and you yourself know about Elizabeth May, who was invited to speak at a benefit supper for the Canadians and Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, gave an interview to the Jewish Tribune, and said in that interview she was going to go to the benefit supper to tell the CJPME that they're too anti-Israel. Then said she didn't say that, and it came out that she actually had said it, and the CJPME canceled her. So I mean, you look at all of these parties, there isn't one of them. There's not one national leader sitting in the Parliament of Canada who has taken a moral position or shown any guts whatsoever on the question of Palestinian rights. And even here in Quebec, there's only one party in the National Assembly that's come out very clearly in support of Palestinian rights and Palestinian self-determination, and that is Québec Solidaire. Amir Kadir and François David, but they're the only party sitting in any parliament in this country that has made that statement in support of Palestinian rights and self-determination.
Actually, to confirm what you're saying, we had a petition online, and we collected almost 2,000 signatures against Harper visit to the region, and we said, as Canadian, not in our name, and as Palestinian Arabs, you are not welcome. We sent this petition to all the parliamentarians, whether they are conservative, New Democrats or liberals. You believe it? Not one single MP acknowledged, forget about answering, acknowledged receiving the email that we sent them regarding this statement. But it's not unusual. So
I'm not surprised. I mean, they're guilty of moral cowardice. But when we go back in time to the struggle against the South African apartheid, it was the same thing. People tend to forget that Brian Mulroney was against boycotting South Africa until such a time as there was such a groundswell of movement.
It's true.
And popular protests, and the BDS, which is also happening now on the ground against Israel, with pension funds that are now divesting from Israeli banks, etc. And a North American campaign against SodaStream. I would ask your listeners to boycott SodaStream and find out what stores it's in, like the Bay, Canadian Tire, Walmart, Target. Boycott that product.
And London drugs.
These boycotts are happening, and this is what's going to turn around.
That's true.
This is what's turning public opinion. And when public opinion turns, these politicians who really are not leaders, any of them, just followers, they'll go in the direction of the wind. So pretty soon, I would say in a matter of months, you're going to have Mulcair and Trudeau and these people all, they'll be wrapping themselves in the Palestinian flag. Although today they support,
they won't be accepted.
They're complicit in supporting ethnic cleansing.
They won't be accepted. Be sure of it, Bruce.
We won't accept them well, they won't be accepted by people like you and myself and other people who know what's going on. But I don't know about the influence of the corporate media on the general public.
Yeah,
you know,
they do have influence.
I mean, Harper got not Harper, but Mulroney got away with it.
Yeah, that's true. But
people might as
but
well
you know,
also.
the people of South Africa didn't forget. You know, so
no, for sure.
That's what counts. That's what counts.
That's what counts. At any rate. Let me take this moment to express my own personal contempt for them. That's something that gives me some pleasure.
Good. And you know, we should keep up with the grassroots work, and we see it. It's working. The BDS is working, and
it is.
There is a shift in the Canadian media. What do you think towards Palestine? And we've seen it, you know, with the visit of Harper to the region. Although
we'll have to see how that plays out. That it may it may or may not have been a watershed. It remains to be seen. I tend to be somewhat cynical about editorialists, about the editorialists and mainstream newspapers in this country. But it is, I think, something that is there is an unshakable truth, I think, here, in that. In my opinion, the BDS and the impact that it's going to have on Israel is irreversible at this point in time.
That's true.
It's gone around the corner.
Yeah.
And just maybe in a last among final comments. When I was in the West Bank in 2010, and I was there for the World Forum on Education, I was in Ramallah. And among other places, and in the unimaginable nightmare that is Hebron, which is beyond my ability to describe the awfulness of that of what's going on there. When I was in Ramallah, I had the opportunity to talk to a few South African delegates who had experienced apartheid in South Africa, and what they told me was that they considered what they'd seen of apartheid in the occupied territories. They considered it to be worse than what they had experienced in South Africa. But they said this, that they felt that the BDS movement in support of Palestinian emancipation was moving more quickly than it had in the South African experience.
You're right, yeah.
And I think they were right. I think now that it's starting to grow by leaps and bounds. As I mentioned, there's a Dutch pension plan that is divesting from 5 Israeli banks because they support settlements. There is the third largest pension fund in Europe, which is called ABP, has put Israel on notice that it is not going to have anything to do with a country that is is involved in continuing colonization of Palestinian lands. So it's happening at different levels. Once it gets to pension plans, you're really there with big investors, and that shakes the establishment there.
It is shaking them already. It is already shaking them, including ministers. I just want to conclude, Bruce, by mentioning when we were talking about the media, they were really cowardly when the incident at the Nativity Church happened to their fellow reporters, because one of the CP reporters said, I haven't seen anything, although one of the Palestinian reporters was beaten by a guard. and
by a Harper security guard.
Harper security guard. And really, they didn't show any solidarity with this, although the Palestinian reporters all went out of the Nativity Church and staged a protest outside against what they did. And what they were doing, really, they were trying to film inside the church, which the media didn't tell us that. They allow them to film outside, but they won't allow them to film inside. And that's when they start to film inside, that's when the incident happens.
But you see, that's all part of the long-standing censorship that exists within the corporate media in this country. Anytime there is a reference to the Palestinian question, I've seen it myself. I can tell you the number of interviews this goes back. I haven't given one to CTV here locally in years, because every time I gave one to them, either it was basically cut to nothing, or it wasn't shown at all. So they have an established censorship. I'm not surprised by the fact that they didn't have the moral courage to report that a fellow journalist had been attacked and assaulted by a Harper security guard. That's all over the internet, by the way.
It is.
But I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in any mainstream media in this country.
No, that's true, and it's shameful. It's very shameful. If it happened in Ukraine, you'll know the results, right?
Oh yes, well, that's I mean, it's the same thing with the way they've tried to demonize Iran. The irony is that Iran's troops are fighting Al Qaeda on Iranian territory, and Israel and Saudi Arabia are supporting the Mujahideen, Al Qaeda elements in Syria, in Iraq, where they're trying to erect an Islamic republic based on Sharia law. Basically, what Saudi Arabia does is it exports oil and Wahhabi fundamentalism, and Wahhabism has Wahhabi fundamentalism has nothing whatsoever to do with mainstream Islam,
or Syria for that matter.
Exactly. But that's also a game that's been played. What Western interests have done is they've promoted the Wahhabi fundamentalism in the attempt to discredit Islam in the eyes of Westerners.
And like you said. Like you said, the blowback is coming the same way. The blowback after they supported Bin Laden.
We should not be pointing the finger at Iran. We should be pointing the finger at Saudi Arabia, and yet we don't do it because they have trillions invested in this country.
And look what happened after they supported Bin Laden against the Soviet presence in Afghanistan.
But in my estimation, that's when they opened the Pandora's box in 1979. Because had they supported the secular society that was evolving in Afghanistan at that time, the entire region would be a different place today.
That's true.
But they keep making the same mistakes.
That's why they wanted to bomb Syria out of existence.
Exactly.
to bring these people.
That is.
Although not to say there is no legitimate demands in the.
But when you go back to if it was 1998. Plan for a new American century, which is basically what was forged by people who were going to become part of the Bush administration. These are things that they wanted to accomplish. They wanted to dismantle Syria.
That's true.
And it was their plan basically to redo the Sykes-Picot.
That's true.
Lines, but from an American perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and
anyway, I think people could Google it again, like you said.
Yeah,
It's
for sure.
Zionist plan for the Middle East, and you'll get Israel Shahak, the late Israel Shahak.
Yes, he did years ago.
He did translate that, and it was great. Anyway, really, we're running out of time, Bruce. I thank you for giving us this interview, and keep up the good work. And
thank you.
Always pleasure talking.
Same on your end.
Yeah.
BDS all the way.
Yeah, thanks. And that's the way for the civil society here also to follow. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was Hana Kawas talking with Bruce Katz from Montreal, president of PAJU. And with that, we conclude another edition of the Voice of Palestine. I've been your co-host, Marian Kawas, and our final piece of music is by Lebanese singer Julia Boutros, entitled I Breathe Freedom. We dedicate this song to all those courageous people in Canada who are speaking up on Palestine and Palestinian rights and telling the Harper government, not in our names.
الحرية يبقى